During the past 3 decades, capitalism has gone global, which has created great wealth for a few people in countries where the average worker has a very meager standard of living. Riches and excesses, something that was formerly thought of as almost treasonous for some countries, now becomes something to aspire towards. While some amass huge wealth, many remain very poor, and resentments towards the upper classes rise. Workers' pay remains stagnant and are not rising as the wealthy increase their profits. This puts a completely new economic system in place, but the old divisions of wealth that existed before socialism was adopted 100 years ago have come back to haunt the population. Class divisions are deep, and a new group has emerged, the global superclass. The globalism of capitalism does not just affect those that are in the countries whose economic systems have changed. As your text author points out in his introduction, we are all affected. You and I both use items that come from all areas of the planet. If you were to glance around you and think about the items that you can see at this very moment, they would have been manufactured by many different countries and transported by carriers that move items all over the planet. This makes all countries interdependent on each other. From that perspective, it helps foster working and hopefully peaceful relationships. In this global economy, 3 primary trading blocs have emerged: North and South America, dominated by the United States; Europe, dominated by Germany; and Asia, dominated by China and Japan. Free trade allows for shifting production centers. One issue for America is the loss of almost entire markets to other countries that can produce items cheaper. An example is the loss of the American steel market to global competition, where steel can be produced for less. This created what we in the U.S. call the Rust Belt, the northern states where some communities' economic base has collapsed. What has this emerging global market meant for U.S. workers? If one looks at the average hourly earning for a U.S. worker and translates the dollars into a constant dollar, meaning, for example, that the wage in 1970 would translate into today's value, you see that workers aren't doing much better. Wages overall have stagnated for U.S. workers. What this chart does not show you is that the cost of health care has risen so significantly over the past 50 years, so that more of your dollars today are going to health care than they were in the past. This then leaves United States families with less disposable income, leading to what economists call the middle class squeeze. Another way of understanding how the U.S. economy is distributing income is to consider this chart. Each rectangle on the left of this figure represents a fifth of the U.S. population, about 63 million people. The rectangles of the inverted pyramid on the right show the percentage of the nation's income that goes to each fifth of the population. You can see that half, about 51%, of the entire country's income goes to the richest fifth of Americans. Only 3% goes to the poorest fifth. The global rise in capitalism has led to many becoming incredibly wealthy, and we call those people the global superclass. This is a small circle of the world's top multinational companies whose members have access to the top circles of political power. Your text author provides this account from a member of this group. Every country has its large financial institutions that are central to the development of that country, and everyone else in finance knows somebody who will know the head of one of those companies. That person knows a senior person in the government that could be useful in a situation. The key is the network. It is 20, 30, 50 people worldwide who ultimately drive the decisions. You can see the incredible concentration of power in this group. The members have access to the top decision makers in government for each of their countries, how to give and get favors from others, and how to move vast amounts of capital and resources from one country to another. Two significant changes are emerging. Democracy is taking hold in more and more countries, creating new political orders in many of the industrializing and the less industrialized nations. Capitalism is also gaining favor in several countries that are emerging world powers. A global superclass is becoming more and more powerful. This all lends itself to creating the possibility of a new world order. Rather than using violence to dominate and capture the resources of other countries, it may be more productive to maintain peaceful and cooperative relationships between countries to maintain trade relations. At the same time, some divisions remain strong. The European Union has financial issues and cannot seem to agree on how to regain its economic strength. The U.S. has contributed billions of dollars into the European Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund to help keep Europe's credit afloat. Russia has seized certain areas, thinking that the U.S. may be planning a war against them. China threatens its neighbors, and North Korea makes noise about attacking the United States. While stability appears to be possible in the future, it's clear that many divisions still exist, and that without working at peaceful and productive relations, that peace will not be a reality. And that concludes our chapter on politics and the economy. We thought about why people have power and what kinds of authority exists. We discussed how modern nations arrange their political systems and also talked about voting patterns among U.S. citizens. We also considered different types of economic arrangements and how capitalism has become a global trend.